Hey, what is up, Plus Ultra fam? Welcome back to the Plus Ultra podcast for the first time in a long time. This one might look and sound a bit different. It's not scripted too in-depthly, and I just wanted to give this one out to have a few things going over, so you guys have some general update information in the form of some entertainment as well. And remember, with podcasts, we do not do recaps. Naruto and Sasuke stare each other down from across the field. Remember, these two have been bitter rivals since childhood, even more negatively than canon. The two hated each other to the point of bare tolerance being miraculous, and only recently had that begun to diminish, and that was only by a small amount. As soon as the match started, Naruto would order his partner Nozomaru to jump down from his shoulder and activate the Man Beast mimicry techniques. Through their shared connection with the Nine Tails, a small amount of red chakra began to leak out of them as Nozomaru transforms into his master. Sasuke coolly watches them, but just before the Uzumaki and his canine could charge or attack, he disappeared from their sightline, and soon the two felt their skulls cling off each other as Sasuke had run behind them and slammed them together. Capitalizing on that confusion, he'd lock his legs around one of the Naruto's throat and his arms around the others. The trio fell to the ground as Sasuke tried to choke them out, and even with enhancements to their physical strength, neither could break Sasuke's iron grip once his arms and legs had gotten locked together. In this timeline, the physical training that Sasuke did in canon to grant him the speed to use Chidori is better put towards making him a better physical contender overall. Something he would definitely need, especially against this version of Naruto, who was so rough and tumble and bigger and badder than the original was. And so, Sasuke is boasting more speed and strength than he did in canon. As Sasuke's grip tightens on their throats, Naruto and Nozomaru have to calm down and stop struggling and think. The two come up with a gamble and use all their strength to struggle a bit more and push Sasuke's grip to move his arms closer to their mouths. They then take a massive chomp into him. Though his pain tolerance is high, Sasuke can't take it, and he substitutes himself with one of the Narutos, making Nozomaru bite into Naruto and vice versa, as Sasuke gets back up, creating some distance and flinging a few shuriken at the duo. Now more angry, and already having grasped his ability a bit better, Naruto roars at the incoming weapons, causing a powerful burst of wind to deflect them, as Nozo circles around, planning to pin Sasuke down in a pincer maneuver, while also allowing Naruto to close in on him from the front. But instead, the Uchiha met the transformed dog head on, clashing with him in the middle of the wide arena while Naruto rushed towards them. Sasuke then expertly flipped over Nozomaru, using his short collar to fling him into Naruto. But the partners turned this to their advantage, as Nozomaru turned back to his true form, while Naruto extended his arms to give the puppet platform to bounce off of, and back off to the enemy to capture Sasuke. But finally, the Uchiha was in the perfect position he'd been trying to get into the entire fight, with both the Mutt and his master making eye contact with him. Using the Eye of Hypnotism with Sharingan as instructed by Kakashi, Sasuke is able to suppress the amount of Nine Tails chakra that both are currently utilizing. Under these circumstances, we'll also say that it's possible for a Sharingan user to at least partially suppress the Nine Tails without fully knowing of its presence. Or maybe Sasuke, not having fully awakened his Sharingan at the moment, isn't able to commune with Nine Tails inside of Naruto's head or the small amount of chakra inside Nozomaru like he could do later on in canon. With the imp from the red chakra gone, Nozomaru loses out on a large amount of his full speed, and this allows Sasuke to bat him out of the air. But it wasn't as if Naruto had stopped moving after he and Nozomaru's counterattack had failed. So when the blonde boy's fist was seen heading towards his face after he knocked the dog out of his line of sight, Sasuke was a bit surprised. Even with enhanced perception and more speed than in canon, the punch had gotten too close to be fully dodged, but Sasuke could allow it to graze him instead, putting a long gash on his face from his cheek to his ear. Naruto is finally able to get his hands on the Uchiha, with Sasuke grabbing onto his arms and trying to pry them off for only a small amount of success. Without his windpipe being crushed, it seemed the two of them were nearly equal in physical strength, and so the next few seconds were spent straining against each other. Nozomaru finally stands up, snorting and trying to get his brain unscrambled as he growls and charges back in to aid his master. Smartly, Sasuke doesn't allow him the opportunity, releases his grip on Naruto's hands, forfeiting the conscious strength to win the battle at hand. He drops and places his shoulder in Naruto's sternum, only to rev his feet up and use his lower position to send him reeling back and rolling away as Nozomaru's pounce misses. With that avoided, Sasuke once again retreats to a safe distance, remembering that was where he held the advantage and could counter and close in on his opponents if need be. Realizing the fight is stalemated for now, Naruto calls his puppy back to his side and leans down to encourage him. The canine whines and not having helped much at all so far. This gives Naruto an idea, and he picks up Nozomaru, putting him on top of his head and telling him that he's going to win this for them. Looking back to Sasuke, and with much less practice ease than what he had in canon, Naruto grins and makes the hand seal for the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Remember, he was taught in order to graduate the academy, though here he's much less adept at using it. While he definitely has the chakra capacity to spam it like he did in canon, his other skills have been refined enough that it's a technique that he's leaned on much less and gained way less experience in and comfort with. But making around 50 clones to surround the opponent was well within the wheelhouse. Sasuke frowns, realizing the position he's in. and it deepens as the army all drops to all fours and uses Inosuke clan jutsu of the same name. With the stance change, Sasuke uses the Sharingan's Eye of Insight, allowing him to see what's to come. Preemptively, he pulls out and throws down a smoke bomb to cover himself up, but the cloud was not meant solely for hiding, as he knew that Naruto's nose could sniff him out. A few of the clones shoot into the cloud, confident that they'll be able to take Sasuke down quickly, but instead they're all smacked out of the air by Sasuke's masterful counter of the passing Fang technique. Once the rest of the army realized their comrades were losing, they all began to rush in. Sasuke had to work very hard to beat away every clone that approached, countering here and dodging there while throwing clones into each other to hopefully dispel them. While the Sharingans make it reacting easy, the sheer numbers were becoming a big issue. In response, he waited for an opening and jumped upward and out of the cloud. Now free from it, he quickly weaved hand signs and blew the rest of the Naruto clones away with a fireball jutsu. Gravity pulled him back to the ground and into the smoke cloud. But just as his feet had hit the ground, the real Naruto came bursting through the smoke, having perfectly timed his own passing Fang technique. With the split second with the obvious frontal attack dead on, Sasuke was able to very easily dodge it, but that was too easy, and wouldn't allow him to embarrass Naruto the way he really wanted to. Instead, he leapt completely over Naruto's spinning charge, and using his enhanced perception to slow down the side of Naruto's spinning and reached forward, slamming him into the ground with all the momentum he built up in a vicious armbar. Increasing the pressure of the lock, Sasuke orders Naruto to give up or he'd break his arm beyond repair. He knew he had no problem doing so. Gritting his teeth in pain, Naruto actually laughs, and claims that for a guy with magic eyes, Sasuke sucks at using them. Before that statement could be questioned, something small, red, fluffy, and angry had landed hard on Sasuke's chest, the force of it being enough to win him and allow Naruto to escape. Before the Uchiha recovered, Nozomaru clamps his jaws around Sasuke's throat, a position where he could quickly end the match. In typical shonen fashion, it flash cut to Sume in the stands, watching the match and smiling proudly at her son's cleverness. Brute force was never going to win this match for him like Naruto so heavily relied on. When he caught on to that, he made two moves to secure Sasuke's attention solely on him and not on Nozomaru. With Sasuke distracted by the clone army in the smoke cloud, Naruto used the time bot to summon a mid-sized toad and have Nozomaru get on his back. As the toad jumps, at the apex of his jump, allows Nozomaru to jump off of its back. By the time Naruto had flown at Sasuke, Nozomaru was off his radar. It was incoming for a surprise attack. Angry at himself for forgetting the damn dog, Sasuke doesn't hesitate to make his next move before Gimli could try and make a call. He smoothly flicks his wrists, and from under his arm wrap, a single kunai sticks out and is pressed against the dog's gut, drawing a tiny bit of blood. Naruto yells angrily and moves to try and help, but Gimli tells him to wait. Ninja hounds are classified as tools, meaning in this case, mutual death for Nozomaru and Sasuke will result in Naruto's victory. It's virtually the same as explosive tag, really. But if Naruto interferes, then Sasuke has nothing to keep him from killing or injuring Nozomaru anyway, and they continue the match with Naruto now one-on-one. So right here, right now, the match came down to a choice made by Naruto. Allow Nozomaru to make the sacrifice, or forfeit the match to Sasuke. Interfering was the same either way. And, obviously, Naruto refused to allow such a thing, and he forfeits. The crowd goes absolutely wild, as the Uchiha lots of them came to see had won his match. Naruto kneels down and opens his arm towards his whimpering puppy to trot over to him. Nozomaru was extremely sad that he couldn't help out more, but Naruto is very proud of him. Genma then apologized to them for introducing the ultimatum, but that was just the best call for him to make at the moment. He was secretly hoping one of them would give up under the condition, but he more expected the two teammates to come to a friendly solution instead. Still, the match ended with no loss of life, and he found that as a win. Since those two still hadn't shown up, it was Shikamaru and Choji's match next. The two were still pretty unhappy with the concept of having to face one another, but now it was way too late to back out of it. The match would start as most would, as Choji and Shikamaru face off, and Geto orders them to begin. Preemptively, Shikamaru makes a small bit of distance, expecting to see Choji open up with his partial expansion, followed by the human boulder technique. Instead, Choji drops into the stands much like that of a sprinter. Straining, the boy pushes chakra to his legs until his calf muscles looked more muscular than possible. And then with a burst of wind, the plump boy shot forth like a high-caliber tank round, with a call of partial expansion jutsu, followed by another call of sprinting human boulder. The usual speed of the technique had somehow far exceeded what Shikamaru remembered, and so he was only able to dodge to the side a bit and get his torso out of the way. His legs, however, were hit and smacked away before they could be actually rolled over, but this caused his torso to swing back and slam into the back of Choji's spinning boulder-like body. He also took the hit of finally hitting the ground as Choji rolled away, knocking the wind from his lungs. That hurt. He couldn't breathe. Choji was even stronger than he thought he was when he didn't want to fight him. Shikamaru wanted to go home. In the stands, Choza and Shikaku, having personally trained their boys in this timeline, are at the finals to watch them. Chozo brags that he's been teamed up with the sharpest Nara for as long as he can remember. He knew the weakness of their brilliance. If you move too quick and hit too hard for them to think, it doesn't matter how smart or dumb someone is. Shigaku silently realizes that Chozo had gone so far as to evolve one of his clan's old techniques for this match, and likely made the whole Akimichi clan as a whole stronger by doing so. He nor Shikamaru had taken this that seriously. They mostly just played shogi for this, and he was curious how much Choji wanted to win this match. Still gasping for air as he notices Choji veering and about to roll back to hit him once again, Shikamaru reaches into his weapons pouch and chucks down a small bomb of his own, attempting to get out of the way and inches to cover the nearby trees. Once he'd realized that Shikamaru had done so, Choji stops his rolling and releases his technique, reaching into his own weapons pouch and pulling out a kunai and ties one explosive over to it. He then throws it directly into the cover of the trees to smoke his best friend out of them, only for a well-placed kunai from Shikamaru to deflect it and cause it to clank off and fall to the ground just as the explosion went off. Growling in anger, Choji prepares to take evasive maneuvers, being smart enough to realize Shikamaru's long-range advantage over him for now. It was a smart move as Shikamaru began to copy him, flinging explosive kunai just about everywhere the chubbier boy had decided to stand, but surely he'd run out soon. And so he did. But once he did, Shikamaru began to walk out of the woods confidently. Choji could tell he was flat out of kunai, and likely ready to give up. In fact, he expected him to raise his hand and do just that. But instead, the Nara flung his jacket off and tied it to a kunai like a parachute before sprinting towards him. The Akimichi realized at some point his friend had been infected by his own drive to win, though he likely doubted that all-you-can-eat barbecue was on the line for Shikamaru as well. Guessing the trick his best friend was about to go for and not wanting to underestimate him, Choji once again drops into his runner stance and this time uses a much weaker sprinting human boulder. He was aiming directly at the oncoming Shikamaru and planned to give him a good love tap to end the match. When the boys were mere feet apart, Shikamaru stopped on a dime and Choji strangely did the same, although much more sloppily. But his body continued to roll and upturned the loose dirt, broken and loosened up by Shikamaru's rain of explosive kunai. Shikamaru watched gleefully as Choji accidentally buried himself due to his own power and rotation. By the time he stopped, his entire body was nearly not invisible. The match is called, and Shikamaru quickly goes to helping Choji dig himself out. Now it was finally the third match, and Kiba's time to shine against the so-called best Gideon in the Leaf, Neji. The two took the field with Kiba letting Akamaru down from his head and telling him that they have to show up Naruto and Nozomaru since they had lost. The puppy agrees wholeheartedly. Neji, on the other hand, though having come to respect the Inuzuka clan as one with much more power than he initially thought, Neji still looked down on Kiba. The fool had urinated on himself to defeat an opponent. How could he not? With a gleeful smirk at the look of disgust on Neji's face, Kiba bent down to whisper to Akamaru, just so low enough that even sending chakra to one's ears wouldn't allow them to catch it. He reasserted firmly that they were going to beat this guy, and the puppy, instead of barking this time, kept his mouth closed and nodded once. It was an oddly human gesture for him to make, something one could find happening between Naruto and Nozomaru, not usually Akamaru and Kiba. Kiba, of course, never noticed it, but from the stands, Sume keenly honed in on the slight detail. Beside her, Naruto and Nozomaru sat, ready to watch the match, their teammate Hinata at their side. Genma called their match a go, and wordlessly, Kiba and Akamaru met preparation for all-out combat, transforming and utilizing the human beast's mimicry technique. Neji readied his stance and allowed his Bakugan to spring forth. The Kiba to the right grout to the other, go for a walk. Neji witnessed as the two summoned a large amount of chakra to the tips of their feet and the palms of their hands, but after that, it was very hard to keep track of their movements. He realized that these mongols utilized the lesson of the tree walking exercise as a way to casually speed up an already speedy technique, because remember, Kiba isn't exactly slow in canon using human beast mimicry. Neji has a small bit of trouble trying to see the two Kibas at first. His body just isn't able to react at the same speed or one fast enough to counter this version of Kiba. That is, until the speed gradually slowed a bit as Kiba starts to burn through more and more chakra, or his eyes and mind starting to adapt this strategy, possibly even a mixture of both. With this development, he is able to notice that one of the Kibas is about to strike from. He strikes out and nails Kiba's left shoulder head on, stopping the uppercut he was about to be slammed with short by a few inches and sealing up the chakra point to boot. Kiba was already breathing hard, showing that this technique was far from being mastered by him, but he smiled and reminded Neji that he had a dog. Akamaru, having transformed into Kiba, was utilizing more chakra to move faster than him and moving as if he was one of Kiba's after images. This allowed him to get a slight jump on Neji, as the air above his head seemed to displace itself as something large that wasn't there before suddenly was. The damn dog was about to slam his fist down on top of Neji's skull like a sledgehammer. It was quite near his blind spot, in fact. Part of Neji shudders as he noticed that a few more inches to the left and he would not be able to see his opponent. With the merciless speed, a bubble of chakra formed around his body. It allowed him to spin so fast to where he turned and seen Akamaru dozens of times by now. The transformed dog found his hands impacting off the high-density, high-velocity dome of chakra. With that, he was sucked into his force. His hands were dragged forward, and soon his entire body was being dragged across the bowl and blown away harshly. Kiba, who had been so close to Neji, was hit hard, being dragged across the ground and seating until stopping short of the arena wall. Akamaru was forced out of his transformation and flopped unconscious at the foot of the trees, his small body roughed up badly. Reeling, Kiba struggled to stay conscious for a moment, a fog and confusion now plaguing his mind. With a mouth full of blood and dirt, Kiba tried to remember his own name. Once that came, he wondered where Akamaru was and why Neji was currently walking towards him so deliberately and slowly. He finally glanced at the tree line to see the puppy breathing so much shallowly. He came into this way too cocky and he just realized that now, once Neji had looked to Genma to call the match now. His body forced him to sit up and he stumbles to his feet. His ears still ringing, he was thankfully able to hear that loud and clear. But as the grogginess started to disappear, it was replaced by pain and the small tinge of fear. Neji sighed and decided to go back on the offensive. A slow walk towards Kiba, who subconsciously took a single step backwards at the sight of it. But finally, he hears Naruto's voice roaring over the crowd, piercing the veil and filling his heart back up with pride and competitive spirit. He growled, steeled himself, and resolved to win. Neji was closing in more and more. Kiba reached into his weapons pouch for something, but by the time he was ready to use what was in his hand, Neji was in range to attack. He ducked into a dangerous looking stance, and quick as a whip, Kiba popped the food pill he just retrieved into his mouth that is still working on. A burst of chakra to his feet made a good bit of distance between he and Neji, but the Hyuga's own speed decided to close that off very quickly. But shocking Neji, Kiba's running it in it there. Intercepting Neji, for a moment the Hyuga became the target of the passing Fang technique, though debilitated a bit by Kiba's stunned arm and the damage on his body. Neji was quicker on the draw, however, and Kiba's drill met Neji's impenetrable shield. While he attempted to push against the barrier and break through, there was absolutely no give to it. He was repelled away and once again deposited harshly on the ground. But now adrenaline had dulled the pain and determination had narrowed his view. Another passing Fang launched him back at the Hyuga, to the exact same result twice more. Disgusted by the display of rebellion against fate, Neji chastises Kiba, and explains he'd face much less hardship in life if he'd just accept his place as his lesser. In fact, that was his only option. Kiba was vehemently against this idea. Through bruises and gritted teeth, he fights back to his feet with a snarl. Fate wasn't what led him. The Yunosuka lived as passionately and as happy as the animals they trained. As such, he couldn't accept such a caged bird mentality. And due to this, we would see Neji express some of his backstory and his views on the world. Nothing as in-depth as what we got in canon though, nothing about his father's death and his grudge towards the Hyuga main branch, but a nice condescending speech about why Kiba's lineage makes him inferior to Neji. It's a chance for Neji to still regurgitate some dangerous, dogmatic, elitist ideals, somewhat to make the claims in reference to his uncle in the main branch, and somewhat to still demonstrate that he's blind to his own ideology. In his head, Kiba was racking his brain for some kind of way to pull this out of the jaws of defeat. He had been hoping that Akamaru would wake up by now, but what use did that do in the end? Neji didn't seem extremely tired, and Kiba had hit his rotation from every angle he could think of, and it was tough everywhere. He was even under the impression that it was airtight since for a moment during its use, he couldn't smell Neji's scent as strongly. So there was a hole in it somewhere. He just had to sniff it out. As he showed the last part, Kiba's increased ingenuity in this timeline has become one of his greatest weapons, much like it is for Naruto himself. With an idea and nearly drained to zero, he once again flies into the passing Fang, only for Neji to once again attempt to counter using rotation. Having tricked Neji, Kiba would actually veer away at the last moment, flying himself straight to the unconscious pup's side. He quickly pushes the food pill into the puppy's mouth and slips him under his coat just in time to jump away as Neji posts their former standing spot with Shuriken. With only one hand to hold Akamaru in his jacket, Kiba couldn't rely on the passing Fang for maneuvering. This forced him into running with everything he had while Neji gave an expert and precise chase. Hiding was relevant, and the Hyuga was fast enough to catch up quickly and keep him on his toes, though it was very clear that Neji was forcing him to put his back against the wall and allow him to cut off his escape routes and put him down for good. But finally, he felt the furry lump in his jacket rustle and his pup's head popped out of the top of it, his fur now red and his demeanor angry. Kiba gave the order for dynamic marking and made to make a decoy of himself, unzipping his jacket while simultaneously jumping backwards as they approaching Neji. For a split second he forgot. Damn X-ray vision. Neji had seen through the ploy to hide Akamaru's awakening, and Kiba was paid back for it by receiving a shuriken to the shoulder before he could react to it and get out of the way of a rushing palm strike that once again sent Kiba sprawling. But Akamaru was on a mission after receiving his master's order. Enhancing his speed as much as he could and using his small body to his advantage, the intelligent creature attempted to get very close to Neji. Just a few inches close to their opponent should suffice for what Kiba's ideal was. Neji didn't allow the approach easily, but Akamaru's size and speed helped him dodge narrowly until he was nearly in range. Once he had gotten within kicking range of the Hyuga, the dog suddenly skidded to a halt and scampered off, waiting the ground fearfully as he dodged the kick from Neji. The Hyuga recognized this at the same moment that he noticed Kiba once again using the passing Fang towards him, and Akamaru doing the exact same the other way. Realizing the danger, Neji once again utilized the rotation only to receive no impact to the dome. Outside of it, the two partners were expertly orbiting it and weaving around each other as if not to crash. Neji knew if it was a test of stamina the two wanted though, he would be the one to win, because fate had already decided that, what was that noise? That was when he saw it, as whatever had caused the noise had gotten big enough to grow outside of his blind spot. Kiba and Akamaru had found it and were breaking their way inside the rotation. Using scent, Kiba and Akamaru had found the weak spot in the rotation the same way Kidomaru did in Ken with his arrows. The two, tired and bloodied, had stuck their heads up to Kiba's shoulder and nearly all of Akamaru's body inside. Neji's eyes widened fearfully, as it took a moment to decide whether to break the rotation and attempt a new one, or counter the attack before they could break in. The hesitation cost him. Kiba seemed to tear the barrier open a millimeter wider, and Akamaru jumped the rest of the way in. And instantly, he began to maul and bite Neji as his master was unable to enter the dome with him, and was once again blown away by it. But Akamaru knocked him off balance, and he fell. His rotation broke, and his hand shot out to attack the Mutt already going for the killing blow. But Akamaru in this instance transformed into Kiba. With his weight and strength increased, Neji was victim to a good rain of blows and scratches. He noted that his forehead protector had been knocked askew by the time he got Akamaru off of him. Once again knocking the beast back into his true form, he went to give chase, to put it down once and for all. He'd barely gotten off one knee before something sharp pricked him in the top of the skull. Behind him stood Kiba, still hurt and exhausted, down an arm, and having taken one hell of a beating. But he'd finally pulled out that win. With Neji pinned down like so, and likely too tired to continue using rotation the way he'd been doing, just like Kiba was tired, Genma had a lot to consider and was about to make a decision when a chill went through the spines of those in the stands who could sense chakra. Something ominous and bloodthirsty had just awoken. In the tower box that the third Hokage had been viewing the matches from, the Kazekage went to take the old man hostage. All hell broke loose as ninja bearing the mark of the sound began to appear, and shinobi in the stands went to action attempting to cover the civilians as they and the younger shinobi had quickly fallen victim to a genjutsu. In the competitor's stand, Gar begins to allow the power of Shukaku to reign freely over his consciousness, attempting a perfect possession state from the beginning as per the original plan. With the initial chaos of the situation, he has bought more than enough time as Baki, Temari, and Kankuro form a protective perimeter around him. With Shikaku and Chosen in the arena already, there are more powerful and notable shinobi there in the stands to protect the civilians and take on the Sound's forces that were fighting there in the arena in the first place. As such, Kakashi and Sume give orders to their team members who've been standing by them. To Shino and Sakura, Sume orders them to begin getting the civilians awake and escorting them out and away from there once they clear a path. Hinata and Naruto would come with Sume to get Kiba and Akamaru out of danger, and we would still get the arrival of the Sound 4 to really trap Hiruzen and Orochimaru in their barrier together. Genma had ordered Neji and Kiba to end their battle, and currently the two boys were back to back, defending themselves alongside the older shinobi against the army of Sound. Though it seemed they would soon be overwhelmed as both Kiba and Neji were already well winded, but soon they were joined by Sume and co. Neji seemed unhappy to see Hinata, but with their help, they were able to begin fighting their way back to where the leaf had made their stronghold. But before they made it there completely, the ground shook as Shukaku the Sand Spirit appeared, with the unconscious Gaara hanging from its head. The beast laughed maniacally as he experienced freedom, and seeing the large cluster of civilians and Leaf Ninja converged around them, fending off the sound, the creature grinned with destructive lust in his eyes. It inhaled deeply and was just about to smash his own hand into his belly to unleash his air bullet jutsu, but something quite large came in between it and its target. Chose Akimichi's arm guards to be nearly blasted off, but he'd assumed the largest size he could and was sent skidding back only a bit from the attack's force. He did not falter and charged forward, smashing right into Shukaku. Doing his best to use leverage against the massive beast, he began to try and drive it away from the civilians. With Gar now in the perfect possession state, the Sand siblings and Baki are able to join in on the attack with the Sound's forces, but so many of them were so weak compared to the Leaf Ninja, the main attacking force is being brought down much faster. Soon the invaders realize the danger Choza poses, and begin to try and aid Shukaku and give it the freedom to boast their attack power. The Battle of Tug-of-War was started with the shinobi trying to tip the scales as much as they could with their giant fighters. That said, Choza was far and away not a Master Shukaku. He was getting injured and growing more and more tired, while Shukaku was just enjoying the destruction and the exercise he got from it. Might Guy, seeing the situation becoming less and less hopeful and worried about Master Choza as well as the Hokage, announced that he thinks this may be the time for him to go all out and use everything he could. Kakashi immediately objects and assures that they will find a way. They just need to hold out for now. If Lord Third could be freed or Master Jiraiya could arrive, then they could deal with the Jinchuriki then, but for now they had to buy time. Unbeknownst to Kakashi, Jiraiya is currently inside the village, dealing with the other shinobi that had been there attacking it. With Choza, Shukaku, and Sume not in their canon positions, Jiraiya is picking up their slack and it's taking them longer than he did in canon. Having heard what Kakashi just said, Sume's eyes widen as she comes to the full realization that Gaara is a Jinchuriki like her adopted child. Getting Kakashi's attention, as he had inadvertently taken up command over the Leaf Shinobi's forces, she reminds him of the technique that she had learned to take custody of Naruto, the 5-element seal. His visible eye widens as even he had forgotten that she had learned that technique, but by this time, Chose had hit his limit and had gone down, so it was worth a try. He asked her what she needs, and Sume asked for a good window of opportunity and her sons. Getting to the boys, Sume begins to explain the situation to her sons, now noticing that Kiba's arm had begun movement once again after a bit of rest. She could even smell that Hinata had offered he and Akamaru some of the healing ointment that she had used on Naruto's wounds, which inherently made it seem less effective on Kiba. Kiba's confused and somewhat impressed on why his mom was the only one who knew how to do this, or why she even knew. In a rush, Sume was about to tell Kiba later, but instead, Naruto blurted out that he was like Gaara. Kiba was stunned into silence for a bit, and looked Naruto in the eyes. He blinked in realization and nodded his head sharply. "Gotcha. Okay, let's go." Naruto went to react shocked, but Kakashi had yelled to them that this was all the time they could afford to buy them, and that Sume better hurry now. At that moment, Guy sprang forward, unleashing 6 of the 8 inner gates, and pushing Shukaku back with the quick fiery punches of his morning peacock technique. Everywhere he hit, turning Shukaku into glass temporarily. There was their opening. Sume had quickly explained the base of the technique they're about to use. They would all use the Fang over Fang simultaneously. It was known as a Synchro Fang over Fang. Basically what we see them do in the 3rd Hokage vs Ninetales boss fight in Ultimate Ninja Storm 3. Using that, they were going to blitz Shukaku and get Sume to the head and to Gaara. There was no time left. Guy's barrage was slowing despite the man's yells of youth and pushing past his limits through this ordeal. His student Rock Lee, whose battle, considering the circumstances, had been cancelled, had been too captivated by this feat to even consider attempting to emulate his master. With the last of his strength fading, Guy was forced to close the gates and retreat. But Shukaku was barely allowed to get both feet on the ground when the Inuzuka clan's family charge with a massive Fang over Fang slammed right into his stubby chin and chest area. After tipping over the massive beast, Sume broke from the pack with the help of her sons, taking hold of her hands and helping to throw her through the air and towards Gaara lodged in the forehead of the monster. The mother lit her fingers at Chakra and slammed them not too gently into Gaara's stomach. Not out of malice, mind you, but remember she will be tense as she's not sure if this will work or not. Thankfully, she is met with success as she turns her fingers and tightens Gaara's seal. The defeated Sand Team and those who had just witnessed the 3rd Hokage's death watched solemnly as Shukaku began to crumble and a wave of sand fell. With it, Orochimaru in an injured state fled, with Kabuto and the Sound 4. Sume sat cradling Gaara's unconscious body in her arms, her motherly instincts instantly registering the similarities between he and her adopted child. She now felt a bit of sympathy and protectiveness over the boy because of it. As for right now though, he had to be detained as with his teacher and his teammates. The Sand Team and the Sound Ninja would be captured, and it wouldn't take super long before news came from the Hidden Sand that revealed the discovery of the real Kazekage's corpse being found and the admittance of their guilt and being tricked by Orochimaru. An immediate call of surrender, which the Leaf, still in mourning, accepts graciously. A funeral was held for the 3rd Hokage, where Naruto still shows a lot of reverence. While the old man would have had nowhere near the same impact on his life in this timeline, Sume has done very well to inform Naruto of how instrumental Sarutobi was in helping her to get custody of him after his birth. That was something he was eternally grateful for, and it translated into a deep reverence shown here. Kiba though silently followed suit, as did Akamaru and Nozomaru. The Sand Team's release from the Leaf's prisons would be as peaceful as could be. Before the village had declared their surrender and the Kazekage's death, Ibiki had not been kind at all in his questioning. Gaara did however receive the blessing of having Sume step in to act as his interrogator. By the reaction of Ibiki leaving the room, she didn't seem like she was supposed to be there, but she had the confidence like she did. He was aware of the woman somehow, remembering her from the last few seconds of the battle the other day. Sume would remain calm and go through all the questions that needed answering, and surprisingly did so in as non-threatening tone as possible. From her experience of dealing with Kushina when they were younger, and thinking of how she still heard some people in the village speak about Naruto, she guessed Gaara could use someone treating him like a person for once in his life. And for the first real time in life, Gaara can say he's seen a bit of what an actual maternal relationship is like, at least in these brief moments. It leaves an imprint on his mind that he couldn't shake off. Sume had gotten in trouble for it. She didn't care much though, as she'd been the one to stop the boy in the first place, and most people conceded defeat after that point. As in canon, the Ojas would still approach Jiraiya Odasani to take up the position of the 5th Hokage, but also as in canon, Jiraiya declines and suggests Tsunade is a better candidate than himself, even offering to fetch her for the village. They accept and he decides that he wants to take an interesting fellow with him. Meanwhile, Naruto, now fully healed with the help of his tenant, and Kiba, nearly so by just being a normal human being, are enjoying some downtime along with Hinata at Ichiraku Ramen. For the moment, Kiba wouldn't be doing any real missions for about a week at least, and Akamaru was only slightly better than he was. Nozo, like his master, was at full capacity, and enjoying the bit of R&R after all the recent drama. However, they are soon interrupted by the appearance of Jiraiya. He actually contracts all 3 of them into tagging along with him to find someone. He explains that expecting Naruto's brother may in fact want to go, he asks their mother, and even Kakashi, if he minded lending them the Hyuga girl on this team. A whole team of trackers helping him search for his target would make things go a lot smoother. Skip past all the question and answering at bars, even though he'd probably still like to go to bars. But now the only objective is catching a scent of her or sight of her if she's in the nearby vicinity. Hinata is a bit nervous to leave as she'd answered to her father and not her sensei, but Jiraiya boasts that everyone respects Sannin, nearly as much as the Hokage even. Besides, this was an official mission. They would all be compensated for their work with first-hand training from him himself. This sparks the attention of Hinata and Kiba, who had been aware that this was who Naruto had trained under for the exams, and partly why he'd attained so much newfound strength, and his summoning ability on top of that. The two agree to go along, and as such, Naruto has forced him to going as well. The group finished their lunch and set off immediately after they're allowed to go back home and pack for the trip, Sumi warning her boys to do everything Master Jiraiya says. Unless it involves women, then do the exact opposite of what he says, before sending them on their way. Hinata explained the situation to her father, who, through careful consideration, allows her to go. Waiting until she leaves, he orders a branch family Chunin to follow Lord Jiraiya and his team from a distance and monitor everything that takes place. Keep Hinata safe. While Heihachi would certainly respect Jiraiya as his better, by a large degree even, after an attack on the village, it paid to be cautious in the shinobi world. The crew would journey until reaching an inn in the evening, where Jiraiya booked a room for him, Kiba, and Naruto, and one for Hinata right next door. In the village, Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai deal with the issue of cloaked visitors into the still recovering village, which ends up with similar results to canon. Even this timeline's much faster. Sasuke tracking down Naruto and Jiraiya's search party, where he finds the blonde boy, as well as the Hyuga heiress and Kiba, staring down and grinning Kisame, who blocked them from reaching Naruto, who was nearly hypnotized by his brother, with the likes of Akamaru and Nozomaru barking up a storm. Without the Chidori in this timeline, Sasuke would attempt to achieve his vengeance with the same amount of excesses in the original timeline. Jiraiya would step in and run the two encroachers off, where the group would momentarily return to the Leaf to deposit and injure Sasuke, and tack on even more of a need for Tsunade to return to the village. With their noses and eyes, this group is able to find Tsunade much easier, so Jiraiya decides to get started on his payment early by showing Naruto the technique he wished to teach him in the form of the Rasengan, and mentioning to Kiba and Hinata that he meant that he would give them writing tips, not shinobi tips. This was mostly set out of the jest, but them getting upset was pretty funny to him. He does, however, ask the two to give him a bit more time in deciding on what he should teach both of them, not at the moment completely sure himself. In the following days, Jiraiya and his team find Tsunade after she's had her initial run-in with Orochimaru, who still asks her to heal his arms. Catching up over food, Jiraiya reveals his reason in seeking her out, so Jiraiya offers Tsunade the position of Hokage, shocking the three young shinobi with him. Like in canon, she refuses. Here, though, Naruto still takes great offense to her words. Not just because he respects the title of Hokage as a citizen of the Leaf, but also because he is still very grateful towards the third Hokage. And as much as he's changed, this version of Naruto will likely be more surly and mouth off even worse to Tsunade. This coupled with his greater skill in this timeline, and having Hinata around to give him visual tips on the Rasengan, the technique may be a bit close to completion when he tries to use it against Tsunade. She still makes fun of him, and she and Naruto still come to the bet of Naruto trying to complete it in a week, with Tsunade's loss in this timeline meaning she had to verbally apologize to the Hokage and not give up her necklace. It's decided that Jiraiya and company will stay in town for the duration of the week, and Naruto, like in canon, spends it training, actually coming to the realization of being able to do the technique with the help of a clone. He also comes to one of his possibility of switching that method out by having Nozomaru learn to help him mold the chakra for the Rasengan. It adds some extra difficulty, but he'd already saw the mystery of the technique, and this would be much more efficient on chakra. Concurrently, Jiraiya would find the techniques that he attempts to teach Naruto's brother and friend. For Kiba, he says about attempting to have the boy learn the Wild Lion's Mane technique. His thinking being if you were able to equip the tip of the passing fang technique with the steel sharp hairs, it'd make the drill attack much more dangerous. If Akamaru could learn it as well, then that'd double the trading power. And teaching a dog ninjutsu would be pretty fun, he realized. For Hinata, he scratched his head for a while, but he'd finally thought of something fitting: the Toad Flatness technique. It was one which required decent chakra control, and in the hands of a Hyuga, it could be used for some extra intelligence gathering, tracking, and covert operations, possibly even combat applications. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut the story off here for right now. In all honesty, this simple podcast story has taken up pretty much a large spot in my heart, as recently I've kind of found some love for it, even though I haven't done anything with it in a while. I've attempted to show it some more love than I usually do with podcast what ifs, but that also means adding way more detail to these than they really need to, and they get a bit bogged down is what happens. Which is why you see post time skip Naruto and Kiba in the thumbnail. This video has 12 pages in script so far, so I'm just going to pretty much skip past the prospect of the end of the Search for Tsunade arc, even though having Orochimaru and Kabuto with Kiba and Hinata present could be a really fun fight. I think it's going to be adding way too much detail in from my part, and it'll be way longer. I just can't afford to do it with this series right now because I'm trying to finish it off with some level of quickness to it. So we're going to conclude this arc here and just say that everything goes pretty much as in canon, and I'll ask you guys a few questions here. Number one is, how will we move forward in this? Because Sasuke is not burdened by the curse mark to be influenced as he got Orochimaru's power, so what is his next move? Does he still feel like there's a growing power gap between he and Naruto? Does he feel superior to Naruto since he actually beat him in the Chunin exams? Very curious to see what you guys think Sasuke's next move is going to be. I also want to take this time to say that it's pretty obvious that things have been changing with the channel for a while. Uploads have been inconsistent. The podcasts have been coming out weekly. The other channel hasn't been receiving weekly updates. That's because things are changing. It really and truly just got way too hectic to balance a class schedule and classwork and homework from college with a upload schedule, and then a weekly podcast, and then try and do a live stream there, and then try and do a fanfiction reading on that other channel. It just got to be way too much. So the current goal is going to be trying to fine-tune doing the podcast, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is building up on a lot of the good ideas for the podcast and making it a thing that really only happens during the summer. Also, I'm going to be implementing a light goal to receive a part 4 for this series. If you want a part 4 that goes through the conclusion of the Naruto story and this timeline, we're going to have to get this video to 3,000 likes. I realize you guys enjoy the story. I enjoy talking about it. But for me to do a podcast, it takes time. I have to actually sit down and record it. Even though I did boast a lot about how quick these are to make, they're not too quick. And I just have to ensure that if you guys are going to ask for them, you guys will make sure that they come out to a really good reception. So that's going to do it for me. Make sure you're keeping up to date with things that are going on the channel. Make sure you're staying to the end of the video. Make sure you're liking the videos, sharing the videos. Check out the community tab, post a lot. I just did an interview a while ago at the time of recording this, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Shout out to the amazing sponsors and patrons of the channel who really and truly do run this channel almost directly, just because that guaranteed income from making content is just so well worth it when you have to invest back into the content. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I've been rambling. Be sure to take care of yourselves, and as always, go beyond plus ultra. See you guys next time.